Hello, and welcome to Quaver PLC's Leaders in Education series. My name is Stephen Holcomb, and I'm an implementation specialist here at Quaver Ed. In this session, we'll be discussing the topic of how PE teachers can engage authentically with students. I'm excited to introduce our guest, Judy LoBianco. Judy LoBianco has dedicated over 25 years of service as a teacher and administrator in health and physical education in New Jersey public schools. In addition, Judy has served as president of the New Jersey Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, and the Eastern District of the Alliance for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. She served as the 2018 to 2019 president of Shape America and was recognized by Education Week as a leader to learn from in 2018. Welcome, Judy, and thank you for joining us to speak on this topic of authentically engaging with students in PE.
Stephen, I am so thrilled to be here. I thank you so much, and I'm honored to be able to have this discussion today, and I'm really thankful to Quaver Ed by the way that they promote and support teachers across the country in this way.
Well, Judy, let's get started today by getting to know you a little bit more. Can you share a little bit of your experience and story of how you got started in the health and PE world?
Sure. I would love to. I knew that I was a person who wanted to be in a life of service from very young. I started in high school really adoring many of my teachers. Everybody has that one teacher story, right? I've got mine as well. And I really loved health and physical education. I loved my classes. I loved what the mechanisms around what the human body would do. I loved to move. So I knew it was going to be a career in health and physical education right away. And I went to school, went to college, and got my first job right out of college and have taught all three levels, believe it or not, elementary, middle, and high school. And then one day I had a conversation with my supervisor, and this person said to me, if the district wanted to cut physical education out of the schools, I don't know that there'd be anything I could do about that. So I started to think about that and started to think about my role as a voice and an advocate for the profession. So I decided to go back to school and become a supervisor, and I did. And it was a thrill to be able to teach teachers, support teachers, promote physical education and health in the community and advocate for what we do. And I did that for many, many years. And then my life of service continued. And I gave back to my community by becoming a president of the state and regional and national organizations, as you know. And that filled my bucket as well, to be able to give the profession overall. So my journey's been wonderful, and I recently got out of the public schools back in 2019, and now I'm starting to consult. So I'm a consultant now, and I get to do in-services and workshops and meet all kinds of different health and PE teachers from around my state and around the country. And I'm really having a great time doing that and continuing to be of service to this outstanding profession.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Sure. With this in mind, this actually shows me that you bring a certain authenticity to our profession. Can you explain or describe what authentic teaching looks like in the elementary PE setting?
Right. So this word authentic is very important to me, right? Because kids can spot a fake from a mile away. Right? And if you come to school as your authentic self, if you come with that passion and that service and that willingness to be able to be there to serve young people, kids feel that. That authenticity is felt, right? And if it's forced and if it's something that you're not happy doing, ultimately children are affected by that, right? So it's really not about the what you're teaching. It's not about your instructional style. Being authentic means that you are fully present with children each day, seeing them, helping them, and meeting them where they are. That's the authenticity that I think teachers should bring to the field.
That's a very important point of being present in the moment with your students. So can you share with us the importance and impact of physical literacy on students and some strategies or tips you might have for connecting physical literacy into daily instruction?
Right. So physical literacy is not a buzzword. It's making sure that kids, in our experiences with them, feel like they belong in our classrooms and that they're confident and they're competent movers. So that starts and ends with us. So when I say physical literacy, I think it's important for teachers to understand that it's not about the games we play with them. It's not about the sport we're teaching or the skill we're teaching. It's about seeing every child and understanding first that not every child is having the same experiences in our classroom. And so when you go to reflect on that and you go to deliver material and content, it makes it easier to see that the what is not really as important as the why. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? And how can we get kids to feel comfortable in their own skin when they step on the field or on the gym floor?
Those are some really great strategies to keep in mind for our teachers. I really like your point that not all students are having the same experience and that it's really up to the teacher to create that type of environment that meets their needs. Sure. Can you share a couple of strategies for differentiation that helped you meet the needs of all of the learners in your health and PE setting?
Right. So this word differentiation is just another way of saying not every kid is the same, right? It's another way of saying that your third period grade 3 class is not the same culture and not the same children with the same needs as your 8th period third grade class, right? So you have to become that flexible and responsive around the needs of every kid. And differentiation looks different for every kid, and it looks different in New York as it does in California, as it does in Texas, right? It depends on the resources you have and the research you've done and the way that you plan your lessons. So when I see differentiation as an administrator, I walk into a gym that allows a lot of student choice, that allows for student voice, and that offers kids the opportunity to throw from distances and to targets that make them feel successful, right? It's interesting to me. I think that athletics and PE have been so interchangeable, but people don't realize that physical education was never meant to be athletics. Physical education is for all children, not just the confident and skillful. So as we plan lessons and as we step into the classroom, it becomes so incredibly imperative that we help children feel like they've accomplished something by the end of the period and that they know something and are able to do something at the end of the lesson that they were not able to do before. And when I see differentiation in the classroom, I can see that happening.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really like seeing PE through the lens that it should be for all students and not just for some.
Sure.
With this in mind and with differentiation, I want to dig deeper a little bit into how a teacher can grow into their authentic engagement, specifically with preparation as a strategy. What mindset should teachers have while they prepare lessons and activities for their students?
Right. So in the administrative world, we call this offstage behavior. A lot of the teacher observational evaluation tools talk about what happens offstage versus what happens on stage. And when teachers are in the classroom, that's the fun stuff. That's when we're on. That's when we're a go. That's when we're live. And when we're with kids. And in order for them to be fully present in the classroom, that takes the offstage behaviors, the planning and the preparation that it takes to build a really strong lesson and really strong assessments. So when we look through this lens and we talk about the kinds of evaluation tools around teaching like Marzano or Danielson, they talk about making sure that all of the lessons are, number one, standards aligned, that lessons speak to physical, emotional, and social safety, right? Because at the end of the day, the relationships matter, and kids will not learn if they feel unsafe in those 3 ways: physically, emotionally, and socially safe. So I think that's really important. And it also takes making sure that the activities we choose for the grade levels are developmentally appropriate, right? So I wouldn't want to see kindergarten in a 5v5 basketball game dunking on each other, right? No, that's not going to happen. So it's really important that the teacher be mindful and reflective around this piece, which is why I believe that the time that a teacher spends prepping for their lessons really should be spent thinking about the children who are in front of them, for the reasons I stated before, because not every class is the same. So those valuable moments when we're building lesson plans, we have to think about who are these kids, how can we most help them to engage, are the lesson standards aligned and developmentally appropriate, and how will I get them to transition to a place where they feel confident about the way they're moving? So preparation for me is equally as important as the instructional model in the classroom.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Judy, I know you've been a PE teacher for many years, but I'm going to shift gears a little bit to your life as an administrator.
Oh, yeah.
I know from my experience as a teacher, I always felt pressure from being observed when an administrator walks into the room. So during your observations as an administrator, what were some of the things that you would look for in terms of meaningful engagement?
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to give away all my secrets now for every teacher that's listening.
Sounds good.
The first thing I want to say is that when I walk into a classroom, I'm really not watching you. I'm really not listening to you. Teaching and learning is the child's experience, not ours, right? So I want to hear what kids are talking about. I want to know whether or not they understood their directions. I want to know if they know what we're learning today, and I want to know that they know why. So every observation I did as an administrator, I would call over a few children, and I would introduce myself, and I would ask two questions that I would like every teacher to adopt if they want to know about how to enhance their practice. I would say to the student, do you know what you're learning today? Not what you're doing, but what are you learning? And I would ask, do you know why you're learning it? Right? So let me give you an example. I go into a 7th grade badminton physical education class, and they're playing badminton, and they're learning about the serve. So I pull a child over, and I say, do you know what you're learning today? And the child answers, badminton. And I say, I think that's more like what you're doing. Can you remember what you're learning? Oh, yeah, we're learning how to serve in badminton. Can you tell me why you're learning the serve? And the kids, they usually struggle. I sometimes get this. I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. Why are you asking me all these questions? But most of the time, they remember that the why is anchored in the learning. So why am I learning the serve? Because it starts the game, right? And a lot of the tips I have for teachers around those two questions is to make it clear to kids at the beginning and even write it on the wall somewhere, right? So that kids don't have to guess. Right? There's nothing more frustrating to a teacher than them having given directions for an eloquent 3 minutes, and then they send kids off to do something, and then kids look at each other and go, what are we supposed to do? Right? So helping it make it clear for kids and make sure kids understand that it's okay to ask their peers before they go to the teacher, right? So what they're learning and why they're learning is so much more important than the actual thing we're doing, right? The actual game we're playing. Right? So I think it's important that people understand that when an administrator goes in there, we're watching kids, and we want to make sure that the teacher is watching kids and that we model that as administrators so that the teacher's not always commenting on the outcome of the ball, right, when it goes in the net. Who cares about what the ball does? I don't care about what the ball does. If a kid's never able to make the basket, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We have to make sure to lift up kids wherever they are. So teacher language is important. Teacher nonverbal language is important. And I don't want the teacher's eye on the ball. I mean, we're taught that as athletes when we're kids, right? Keep your eye on the ball. But no, I want my teacher's eyes on the child. That's where the action is happening. That's what teachers should be talking about when they talk about student performance. I love the way that you bent your knees. I loved your follow through. I like the way what you did with your elbow. I like how you kept your stance nice and solid. Not great shot. The praise is great, but it's not specific corrective feedback, the kind of feedback I look for in a classroom. So I think this piece is really important for teachers to understand what goes through the mind of an administrator. We walk in and we feel a certain comfort, a certain atmosphere. We look at the walls. We want to know what the walls say about what you're portraying for kids, and what it does to help support their learning, right? Is there direction on the wall? Is there a conflict corner? Is there a red and yellow and green light for emotions? You can use the environment as much as you can use the power of your voice in a classroom. So administrators look for all of those things, but most of all, we are watching kids, and that's what we want teachers to do when they send them off into a task, being able to help support them where they are and using their student names and helping them advance in whatever the skill is that they're teaching.
Wow, that's great insight into the mind of an administrator, probably a part that not many people know about.
Yeah.
So as we're discussing the support for teachers and troubleshooting challenges, one key factor that can be important is collaboration.
Sure.
From your experience, what are some of the benefits of educator collaboration, and what methods of collaboration have you seen be effective in the classroom?
Right. So I don't think we use the power of collaboration strongly enough in our field. I would love to make sure that administrators encourage this behavior in their school buildings. Part of the problem is the people who most need the collaboration don't get it because they don't want it, right? The people who need the most help don't want to collaborate, right? And that holds our profession back, and it doesn't move the needle in advancing physical education. So for me, it's extremely important that teachers model for each other, visit each other's classrooms, and most often in a physical education setting, when I see a lot of co-teaching going on, that's not collaboration sometimes. Oftentimes, kids know that both teachers have a role in what goes on in the lesson, but other times, it's one teacher doing everything and the other teacher doing nothing. That's not collaboration. That's just laziness, right? And it's dangerous. It's dangerous for the profession, especially when you're combining classes and you've got more kids in the gym. So when I think about collaboration, I think about teachers who sit together, plan together, speak with each other, get on the same page about the lessons they're teaching and the strategies they're using, incorporating each other's classrooms routines in each other's classrooms so that kids can see some consistency around that. And kids know when teachers are working collaboratively and when they're not, right? So that's another uncomfortable piece when coworkers don't get along. Like I just said it out loud. Ooh. It's really important that when teachers step into the classroom, step into their school environments, that they portray this attitude that they're going to be for and about kids. Because quite honestly, physical education is not just what people think on the outside. This is extremely important work that needs to be taken seriously. Collaboration is a place where we get there so that we can show kids that the serious work of physical education can really be a matter of life and death for kids. We're talking about moving the body for life. And every adult, from the physical educator to whoever it is in the building, has to reinforce that student wellness piece. So I don't just mean collaboration between PE teachers. I mean the entire culture.
Speaking of the culture, in our work here at Quaver Ed, we hear a lot from our educators and we talk about some very important topics. And one of them that pops up is teacher burnout. With this in mind, what suggestions might you have for PE teachers who are looking for that sense of self-care and wellness outside of the classroom?
Right. Teacher burnout is real. And because I love to blame everything on the pandemic, right, it became very apparent that the Great Resignation started. And I think one of the most important things to remember about teacher burnout is to let teachers have this place and space to feel frustration, to feel anxiety and stress, to feel overwhelmed, but then to draw back on the things we know as health and physical educators can help us with that. Taking the mindful moment, right? Taking time for self-care, taking the vacation. And teachers are horrible about that. Why? Because, as I just said in the beginning, we are in service to young people. We are in service to others. But we often forget teachers have lives outside of school. They have families, they have worries, they have stresses. And it's really important that we tap into our professionally certified content expertise and remember the ways that we can manage our own stress, the ways that we can put down the phone, the ways that we can take our deep breath, the ways that we can get away, go on vacation, and not think about our students for a little while. Because teacher burnout can really affect what you're doing in the classroom. I don't want a teacher hitting June 1st saying, I can't wait to get out of here. I want a teacher to say, I'm really going to miss my kids. And on August 30th or whenever school starts up again, I don't want them to say, I can't believe I have to go back to that place. I want an environment where teachers are saying, I can't wait to see them again, right? And teacher burnout is real. Teacher burnout can affect what they're doing in the classroom. And most of all, and most importantly, teacher burnout can affect their health. And this is the business that we're in. So who better than to remedy that than our own content experts?
Those are some great strategies and great suggestions on talking about teacher wellness, especially just speaking to teacher burnout in general. With this in mind, on the flip side, you and I discussed the importance of making staff and student wellness a priority in the school day. What advice might you give PE teachers to make wellness a priority for their school?
Right. So there's a famous model here brought to us by the CDC. It's the whole school, whole community, whole child model. And basically what that graphic does, what that that philosophy is that wellness doesn't just happen in health and physical education. And what I was really inspired by, if I have to blame the pandemic, but this was a good thing. This was something that came out of the pandemic that was actually an opportunity for health and physical educators. All of a sudden, the whole world started to talk about health, talk about wellness, talk about mental health, talk about social emotional learning. And this whole time, I'm like, yes, health and physical educators finally have made it. Because we invented social emotional learning, right? But for me, it was like everybody started to talk about how important everyone's well-being was. We all went through this horrific experience, this soul-sucking experience that was the pandemic. We were in isolation. We were experiencing people getting sick. And all of a sudden, there was a priority on health. And it seeped into the schools. And what better way to try and expand on that momentum than to say, hey, health and wellness is the principal's responsibility, the school secretary's responsibility, the cafeteria worker's responsibility, the math teacher's responsibility. And that serious, important student well-being check-in is so incredibly important throughout the school day. And it has to be a collaboration because I want kids to walk into school knowing no matter what else happens here, you're safe and you're okay, and people are going to take care of you, right? In all the ways we know how, because that's the way to keep kids challenged and engaged and motivated and academically successful.
I really love how check-ins like that with a student can keep them engaged, but also you engaged with the student as well.
Yeah.
And then take care of wellness overall.
Sure.
And it's wonderful. With this in mind, what words of encouragement might you have for someone who's watching this and they just found their passion for teaching elementary PE? And we know your journey as a teacher and administrator. So what might be some words that you will share with them?
Yeah, I think one of the things I encounter the most when future professionals come into the field is that they're so excited about the stuff they're going to teach, right? I think when you come into the field, you've got to embrace more than anything else that you will continue to grow and learn as an educator. So that when you stop going to college and you get your degree and you go into the schools, that's only the beginning of your journey. And if you embrace a growth mindset as a teacher, you will always keep up with the latest and current research around education, right? When I taught PE at the elementary level, it was 30 years ago. It's not the PE of today. It certainly doesn't have the technology. We didn't have the technology back then. It's really important to embrace and be humble about what you don't know, right? I'm learning every single day, right? And teachers should be learners of their profession because if teachers tap into being learners, they can tap into being teachers, right? Once you cut yourself off from learning, you cut yourself off from teaching. So for me, the biggest advice I would have for people who find their passion and are able to keep their passion, it's about growing and learning. And in doing that, it's about, being connected to a professional network like membership in Shape America or membership in your state association. But it certainly is around collaborations with a professional learning network. And social media is a fantastic place to find that collaboration, and especially if you're an elementary PE teacher in a school all by yourself where you've got nobody to talk to. Well, thanks to everything that we've seen in technology, every physical education teacher in the world can be someone that you speak to so long as they're on social media. And we need that connectedness as a community. We need that connectedness to keep us motivated. And we need that connectedness to bring us together around our common goal to keep kids healthy and well and safe for a lifetime, right? Because the ultimate goal of PE is for kids to be healthy and safe, right? The ultimate goal of PE comes with being able to get ahead of the next best thing that's going to help them. And as soon as a teacher stops being a growth teacher, they're stuck. They're stuck and kids know it. And so while they sit there in their profession and kids are coming through their program and they're 5 and 6 and 7 years old, the teacher's getting older, but the kids are still 5 years old. The teacher's not learning, but the kids are 5 years old, and that's always going to be the case. So it's really important for me to underscore the growth mindset of every teacher.
Judy, thank you so much for joining us today and speaking on this topic. We know that teachers will appreciate the expertise that you shared.
No, thank you, Stephen, for having me. And as always, thank you to Quaver Ed for supporting teachers again in this way. And I'm sure that with a conversation that's this powerful, it's really going to fire up teachers back into their passion. So I'm really excited about that.
And thank you for joining us today. We hope that you have gained insight on the topic of authentically engaging with your students in PE. Be sure to tune in next month for our next episode of Leaders in Education. We thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the lives of students every day.